The Houston Texans are on a bye week this Sunday. How I long for Houston Texans football, especially in the midst of a 2-game winning streak. We'll talk about something they theoretically could do over the course of the bye week. Plus, the most annoying topic in sports right now just got a whole new layer thanks to a Houston Texans legend. Also, Sports Best League is returning to its roots, and Astros beat writer Chandler Rome of The Athletic and Crush City Territory podcast joins me to talk about some of the big moves that the Astros made in the last 24 hours. I am Paul Gallant, and this is the Gallant Says podcast on an Ask Gallant Anything Friday. Hit it!
A radio show host in Seattle called Paul Gallant.
Paul Gallant's wondering the same things a lot of people are.
You are definitely living in the hindsight world today, Paul.
Do you feel there's been a consistent theme with the interceptions?
I think every interception really has a different story.
I was just kind of curious what Paul gets to see.
Paul Gallant, what the hell is wrong with you?
Hello, and welcome aboard the Gallant Says podcast. It is Friday. Gotta get down on Friday, October 10th, live on YouTube at Paul Gallant, on Twitch at Gallant Says, on X and on Twitter at Gallant Says, at Gallant Says Pod. It's on Instagram at Sports Gallant. On TikTok, at Gallant Says, and on Facebook at Paul Gallant Sports. You can catch this show Monday through Friday around noon Central and occasionally after major Houston sporting events. It's also available wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud as well. If you ever want to cut me off mid-thought, super chat me on YouTube or send me a little Venmo, and I'll play this.
Paul, stop talking. Listen.
But I will eventually get to your comments, which you can also leave the old-fashioned way by sending an email, gallantsays@gmail.com, or a phone call, 281-836-3912. That is how you leave a voicemail. So, making a little bit of a change because I feel like I can at the very least hear an echo. I think now we are good to go. If we're not, let me know. Before we dive into things the Houston Texans could theoretically do, given that they have this weekend off, I need to show you something. And I'm not proud of it. I'm not. It's one of the most embarrassing things that I can remember as a part of the Gallant Says podcast, which we're hoping will take flight at some point down the road. But what we have to do is we have to hold ourselves accountable. We have to make sure that we are going about things the right way. The sound has been off for a little bit of time. You might remember me having said that the sound has been off for a little bit of time once on this show. We got to keep ourselves accountable. So let's go back to a moment in time that I don't know that I'm ever going to officially get over. One of the most embarrassing moments in the history of the Gallant Says podcast. During another moment in time where the audio wasn't so good. Let me show you what I'm talking about. First, I have to unmute the audio. That wasn't muted already because I didn't have everything set up before the start of the show. Paul, this is such an unprofessional podcast. Right you are. I need a fucking producer. Fun. Awesome. Where's Mapes when you need him? Great point. Great point, everybody. How long has this been going? Must have been when I hucked a loogie. Jesus fucking Christ. This has been a great fucking show today. 5 minutes. Motherfucker. God damn it. Anyway, not a proud moment in the history of the Gallant Says podcast. Not a proud moment. And I thought to myself, after seeing one of sports media's most always in-your-face personalities giving yet another apology yesterday, that I, too, needed to make an apology for what just happened there. So, here you guys go. I hope that you will forgive me. I'm apologizing for the thing that everyone's mad at me for on the internet. Truly, I'm sorry if it offended you. I've learned a lot from the mistake I was told that I made. I learned that they'll fire me if I don't do this. More than anything, I just need you to know how sorry I am. That's why I'm using multiple camera angles to record this apology. Do these no-lens glasses that I sometimes wear on the air as a prop make me look sorry as well? You might be wondering, what is it that you're apologizing for? After all, you're always correct, always funny, and or always whatever it is you think that I'm good at. Yes, all of that is true. But I'm sorry about the thing, and I'm sorry if you're mad at me. Which if you are, it's kind of on you. But that's not the point. From the bottom of my heart, or from the bottom of whatever it is you think that I hold dear, I'm truly sorry. Am I done? I'm sorry, everybody. I'm sorry for that. In case you couldn't tell by now, yeah, Ryan Clark apologized again. I can't even keep track of all the apologies. What are all the things that Ryan Clark has apologized for? He made some comment about Robert Griffin III having a white wife. Apologized for that. There was something else that he said. I don't even remember. Apologized for that. And I guess once again, he, in a very serious manner, talked in detail about something that he didn't have all the facts for, completely submarining his attempts to be a serious person. And he apologized again. I don't think I can play the clip on the show because I'll get a copyright strike or something like that. But he keeps on apologizing. I imagine most people that are watching or listening are over ESPN personality Ryan Clark. Here's the reason I am. It's been hard to put into words, so I actually wrote it down because generally when I see him speaking, what I think now is, again, why is he always on camera? And I was wondering, what is it? Because I know that there are some people out there of a specific demographic who are going to use the same tried and true argument against me saying, you're just jealous of a successful black man. I don't see color. Okay, first of all. But second, no, it's not that. I feel like we could unite most of America in at least being tired of what Ryan Clark is trying to be because of this. He has wrapped himself in a layer of self-importance. And hey, if that's the brand that you want to have, great. But there is, when you're trying to be self-important, especially when you're talking about fucking sports, a standard that you have to hold yourself to. If you're always going to be serious and always going to be self-important, you can't be wrong about things. You have to have your facts straight. And very often for Ryan Clark, when he talks about things that he's not as informed as he thinks he is, the layer is peeled back and everyone sees there's not as much behind that layer of self-importance as he thinks there is behind it. I actually was a Ryan Clark fan at one point. I think he's pretty good at talking, especially as far as athletes who have made the journey from being an athlete to being in sports media. I think that he works hard at times when it comes to talking about football. I think a lot of players who played for a time but weren't at the top, I think they work a lot harder than the GOATs. They put in the prep. I would point to my friend Seth Payne on 610 on that front as someone who I think is really good at doing all the things that he's supposed to do to make sure that when he's talking, he's as informed as he possibly can be. But I also find him funny, all that stuff. And to Clark's credit, he actually can be from time to time witty, funny even. But the self-importance, this layer that's over nothing, it's seeping into everything he says and everything he does and spoiling everything. So you might come at me in the same way that so many supporters of Travis Kelce's ex-girlfriend have come at me saying, hey, you're just jealous of a successful black person. I'm just going to say, go back and rewatch what I just said. Tell me you don't feel the same way, especially considering it feels like Ryan Clark is apologizing for something every 5 fucking days. It really does feel that way. Anyway, while we're talking about insufferable things, I spent a lot of time over the last 24 hours wondering how this topic has turned into the Cowboys, Lakers, insert popular team segment that's constantly in your face on all those Speak for Your Pizza shows. I am talking about the Shedeur Sanders saga. Shedeur Sanders has not played in the NFL yet. We all know the story about what went down in the draft, how he fell to the 5th round before the Cleveland Browns finally took him. Didn't really feel like Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski or Browns general manager Andrew Berry wanted him, just based off of the video that we saw of them when they made the pick. They seemed annoyed. Perhaps Jimmy Haslam forced it on him. I'm not 100% sure. But he is a member of the Browns, has yet to play, but he's still topic A on every single Scream for Your Pizza, Speak for Your Pizza TV show. Every single one. You constantly are going to see him being discussed by Stephen A. Smith and Ryan Clark and Dan Orlovsky. And I mean, the poor guy's not even playing. Some Browns reporter tracked him down at a car dealership to ask him what his thoughts were on Joe Flacco being traded to the Bengals. And he had some complimentary things to say about Flacco, who, by the way, was also an awesome mentor for Lamar Jackson. Jackson loves him. So he gets out of the way, and Sanders says all the right things about him. But for whatever reason, the Browns have been kind of dancing around the idea of, even though Dylan Gabriel, their rookie 3rd-round pick, is the starting quarterback, naming Shedeur Sanders the backup quarterback. And by the way, I refuse to do QB1, QB2. It's fucking dumb. No one actually does that. No one does that. Friday Night Lights somehow made that a thing. Nobody does that. Oh, what about tight end? What wide receiver one? Shut the fuck up. When you're talking with me, every single time I'm going to pause you like an old person and say, nope, we don't do that. We don't do that here. We don't do that. But Shedeur Sanders constantly discussed on levels that Tim Tebow was discussed about 15 years ago. And that was an insufferable topic too. And he's got a fan base that's about as psychotic as Tim Tebow stands were. Different demographic. Tebow's fans were seemingly mostly devout Christians. That's not to say Shedeur Sanders stands are not, but it feels like there's a lot of black people who are giant fans of Shedeur Sanders on a level that surprises me because I don't feel like Lamar Jackson had this kind of fan club when he was coming out of Louisville and into the NFL, and he should have. Lamar Jackson's one of the coolest players that we have seen over the last 10, 15 years in college. He's my favorite player at the college football level to watch over the past decade. To a point where I remember, this was 2016, I think, when Louisville had 3 losses and they put Washington in the college football playoff. I was arguing, fuck it. Fuck Washington. They're going to lose. Can we please put in Louisville and Lamar Jackson just so we get Lamar Jackson in the college football playoff? But weirdly, he does not have the militant fan base that Shedeur Sanders does, even though Shedeur Sanders at Colorado was what, 7-6 and good for sure, but never as flashy as Lamar Jackson was. Never as fun to watch as Lamar Jackson was. Maybe he was 13-12. The record's not that good. Nothing he's done in college is that impressive. He's just the son of someone who's really famous. Definitely better than Bronny is relative to LeBron James. But I'm looking at the Shedeur Sanders saga and just rolling my eyes because every single time I take a look up at those Speak for Your Pizza shows, which I normally have on in the background of the TV that I got in my room right here, the Gallant Says podcast studios, and they're talking about fucking Shedeur. And guess what? There is a new layer to this story that actually brings things back to the Houston Texans. There is. I will show you how. I don't know how many people saw what this Houston Texans legend, arguably the greatest quarterback in Texans history. I don't know how many people saw this video, but a new quarterback has entered the fray when it comes to who's the starting quarterback, backup quarterback, and third string quarterback in Cleveland. Here, hang on. We gotta rewind this. I guess it kind of looks like an L, but in case you can't see that Instagram post that he put up there, and apologies for the profanity in the mumble rap if there was any. I believe an N-bomb or two was dropped. But see this? 4-O-V-E. I think it's supposed to look like love. Like Deshaun Watson loves massages. But what is up with athletes and entertainers using numbers to symbolize a letter? But I'm number 4. I'm Deshaun Watson. I'm number 4. Can we stop with this, though? Can we please stop with this? Can we stop? I've seen the number 4 used as an F. I've seen it used as an A. Now we're using it as an L? Or are we using on an F? I don't fucking know. But here it says 4-O-V-E. He's got an acronym like Texans Swarm. And underneath it, as you can see, if you're watching along on YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, Facebook, X, focus only on victories every day. Focus only on victories every day. How do you get that from 4-O-V-E? I don't know. Anyway, that doesn't matter. Deshaun Watson is going to be the backup quarterback in Cleveland. They're paying him a lot of money, and if Dylan Gabriel's out there as the rookie, they're giving him a chance. You don't think that they're going to give the guy that they're still paying a shit ton of money another opportunity to be starting quarterback of the Browns? I think you got to look at the Browns and wonder just how many of the strings Jimmy Haslam, their owner, is pulling. But between drafting Shedeur Sanders after taking Dylan Gabriel and Deshaun Watson still being on the roster because that ridiculous contract and that awful trade that they made with the Texans, you know he's got to be back out there because of Browns ownership and because of Jimmy Haslam. 5 years, $230 million guaranteed. Oh, boy. He is under contract at the very least for this season and next year. And he's going to be on the Browns. They're going to try to give this another swing. They will. Watson has a $35.9 million cap hit this year and an $80 million cap hit next season. He's going to be there. And I bet that you will see Deshaun Watson on the football field before you see Shedeur Sanders. So we're really playing all the insufferable hits today, right? We opened up the show talking about the latest Ryan Clark apology. We've also given you the latest when it comes to Shedeur Sanders watch. Well, the Houston Texans are on a bye week. So maybe we should talk about things the Texans could do on the bye week. I see a lot of people on the TikTok side of things who have been eagerly waiting for me to talk about a potential Houston Texans trade. Lots of people are asking. Carter, what trade? What trade? What Texans trade? Joshua Watt, what trade? Blake Marshall, what's the trade? Is there a Texans trade? Texas fan, who are they trading? Eric Juarez, Jags and Browns trade? What's your opinion? There's no trade. I've tricked you. Because this is the internet version of playing the hits. I'm trying to get people to watch my show. I need to bring you in and lure you into my web and trap you. I have to do it. Okay? This is the way the game's played. Talk about Shedeur Sanders. Talk about Ryan Clark apologizing. I'm playing the hits. There's no Texans game this weekend. I'm playing the hits. I'm throwing out trade scenarios online. And I will in a moment. There actually is a trade scenario that for some reason has legs online. And it shouldn't. It shouldn't have any legs. This story, to me, and the amount of people that are reposting it and discussing it, it's fucking obnoxious. The internet version of playing the hits. Throw a trade proposal out online. I saw this post from somebody named Incarcerated Bob. Who the fuck is Incarcerated Bob? A great question. Incarcerated Bob on X has a cover photo that says, "Make gambling great again." He's got nearly 150,000 followers on X. Hashtag sports betting X. Hashtag fantasy football. $SPY. Parlays. VIP free picks sent daily. So he's one of these jabronis. And at some point, IB the Gambler, a.k.a. Incarcerated Bob, posted this. Breece Hall trade rumors about to heat up. Teams are lurking. Jets, Chargers, Chiefs, Texans, Steelers are sleepers. This post goes out and somehow, some way, blows the fuck up. Is there anything behind this? The Jets might be shopping Breece Hall. They're an 0-5 team. How does a running back help them? They could probably get a draft pick or something in exchange for Hall. They might be shopping other players. Maybe Sauce Gardner. Maybe Garrett Wilson. I don't know. They're awful. The only winless team in the league. But someone puts that out there, and it creates all sort of hullabaloo because it gets aggregated by people who know that if you throw out a trade proposal online, no matter how fucking stupid, the people are going to talk about it. That's too much. That's too little. He's indispensable. Why would I trade for that bozo? Like, it's funny to watch it. It's car crash after car crash after car crash online. But it did get aggregated. I believe it made it all the way to Hail Mary Pass, a prominent football account. The Jets are open to trading Breece Hall per incarcerated Bob. Chargers, Chiefs, Texans are expected to show interest. Maybe they are. Maybe they're not. Maybe not. Maybe fuck yourself. I don't know. I don't know what's actually happening here. You don't either, and this person doesn't either. But if you throw this bullshit chum into the water, people are going to click and people are going to watch. I don't get it. I really don't get it. I don't think running back's the problem for the Houston Texans right now. I think Nick Chubb has looked actually a lot better than any of us expected to this point. Woody Marks, I think, will continue to get more and more opportunities as the season goes along. He looked good against the Titans. The Titans fucking suck. But there's definitely something there with him. I don't expect Joe Mixon to be back this year. Could you upgrade at running back? Yeah, with a bunch of guys. Not just Breece Hall, who is a name that we know because he's on the Jets, had a good rookie season. There's probably other guys out there who are potentially available for the Texans if they do want to go and get a running back. But if you throw this bullshit rage bait out there involving a running back or a skill position player being involved in the trade, it blows up online. It annoys me that it does, but you got to play the game. I'm playing the game. Look at this rage bait. FanDuel. It eventually got to FanDuel. Breece Hall in Kansas City? The Jets are 0-5. Could they start to move on from some of their players? Who says no? Chiefs receive Breece Hall. Jets receive third-round pick in 2026, fifth-round pick in 2027. Look at all these comments in response to it. Look at them. Look at them. Show probable spam. We can keep on going. All of this. All of this. And it's gotten to the point through incarcerated Bob's post, aggregation, and eventually FanDuel, that Breece Hall actually fielded questions about possibly getting traded. In the midst of a strong rebound season, writes NFL.com, Breece Hall is hoping to remain with the New York Jets beyond the trade deadline. No, he's not. No, he's not. He's just saying this because he wants to seem like a loyal soldier. I'm here. I want to be here. He said it like that, too, in a sing-songy, musical kind of way. I'm here. I want to be here. I want to be a New York Jet. No one has ever said that. Hall's name was popping up in trade speculation throughout the offseason. The Jets didn't really address the position in the draft or free agency. Jets head coach Aaron Glenn dismissed any trade talk around Hall when he was asked about it during the preseason. And per Rich Cimini of ESPN.com, even amid the team's 0-5 start, the Jets don't seem to be shopping Hall at this point. Isn't it crazy how a couple of people thinking about a team that stinks with recognizable skill players can post something online, team might be interested in trading something with absolutely no substance behind that rumor, and it blows up and it turns into this? I am here to shit on that segment for you. I am here to ruin it for you because it needs to be ruined. There is enough bullshit on the internet. There is enough slop. Let's fucking get past it. And that's generally what NFL trade deadline conversation is. It's an Ask Alon Anything Friday. You can ask me any question if you want. Fine, I'll give you something, Texans. I'll give you something else. Because I know that some of you guys want a real Texans segment. So I'll give it to you. It'll be Speak for Your Pizza style. Because I'm trying to get clicks, both with this bullshit trade scenario and also with Speak for your pizza talking heads, not giving the Texans the respect they deserve. The Houston Texans are now 2-3. They've won their last 2 games and seem to be on the right track. No. Going into the bye week with a lot of momentum after outscoring their last 2 opponents by a final score of what? 70-10 or something. They've been looking really good. And some people are giving them their flowers. Like Houston Texans legend Dan Orlovsky, who had this to say about our Houston Texans, describing their defense as the best unit in the NFL. That isn't talked about enough.
Who's the best defense in the NFL? I think if you asked most people that, they would say, and rightfully so, probably like Denver or Philadelphia, Houston. Houston is the best unit defensively that doesn't get talked about enough because we've so focused on the offense and hasn't looked great. It looks better the past couple weeks, and the protection has to get better. It still hasn't been exactly where you want it, but when you watch tape on Houston, Will Anderson destroys your run game. Danielle Hunter, great getting the quarterback. Linebacker is as fast, as quick as anybody, and the secondary is a bunch of ball hawks. This defense gives up 12 points a game, 12. And if you look at them, I think they're like 5th in total yardage or maybe 3rd in total yardage at like 270. Pass yardage, it's like $170 a game. Run like 90 yards a game. They're outstanding. And they're like middle of the pack in takeaways, middle of the pack in sacks. So it's not like they're riding the wave of turnovers or sacks. This defense, I know everybody wrote this team off the way they started the season. This defense is the best unit that doesn't get talked about enough. They're absolutely in play.
And that's what we expected going into the year. If you've been following this team and you watched them last year, while the offense has struggled, this is one of the best defenses in the league for all the reasons that Dan laid out. You already know this. It's why even with an 0-3 start, they had a chance to pull themselves back up from the depths. They lost 3 games by 1 score, a couple of plays here, a couple of plays there. Maybe they're 3-2, maybe they're 4-1, maybe they're even 5-0. I mean, the Jaguars' 4-1 record is pretty crazy. They could be 5-0 too. It's the NFL. Games are determined by a couple of plays. That defense for the Texans is such a strength that the offense being one of the worst in the league isn't that much of a mitigating factor. When they go up against good teams, it could be. But when you're playing a team like the Titans or playing a team like the Ravens with how they looked on Sunday, you're going to win those games. They're not going to be able to score against you. You just need to get a little bit of offense. And your defense is going to help the offense out. It's been great to see what the Texans have done the last 2 weeks. Definitely an asterisk attached to it because you're going up against a team that should have fired its head coach by now and a Ravens team that's missing a recent MVP among many other players that also has the worst defense in the NFL. But things are definitely trending upwards. Question from Pablo Fernandez on Facebook. Do you think the Texans have turned the corner and are on the way up? I mean, can't be any lower than they were. So I do think they're on the way up, but I don't know what's going to happen Monday in Seattle. Seahawks have a good defense. At least we think. It didn't look so good against the Buccaneers on Sunday. Sam Darnold has actually been pretty good. I'm having a tough time believing that he is doing some of the same things that he did last year in Minnesota. We'll see we'll see. But I love the defense. And if the offense can make slow steps forward the rest of the year, they're at the very least going to be a playoff contender. That might not be enough for some of you, and I get it. Totally get it. They underachieved last year relative to the expectations. But what Dan Orlovsky is saying is right. And it's a reason to believe that there's still a chance that this team not only makes the playoffs, but wins the division, even though the Colts and the Jaguars are both 4-1, and the Jaguars already have a tiebreaker on you. More from Dan Orlovsky. He didn't just say this on his own on the internet. Dan Orlovsky also brought this to one of those Speak for Your Pizza shows. Old Texans commenter, shout out to him, grabbing this clip of in studio, Dan Orlovsky hanging out with strong, powerful, independent woman Laura Rutledge and strong, powerful, independent woman Mina Kimes.
Believer in the Texans turning things around, or is it just their competition?
Offensively, I'm so much more encouraged. First of all, the AFC South has become a gauntlet. It's crazy. This is defensively, it's the best unit we don't talk about, but the connectivity of their offense is changing. Okay, 6 offensive linemen. It's a wave in the NFL. If you're not doing it, you're missing out. And that's allowing just them to fire off the football. 2023, it was this awesome under center play action in breakers. We haven't seen them in the first 2 weeks. We've started to see them a little bit more in the last 2 weeks. And then their backs have been so good. Nick Chubb, I have no idea how he's doing it, but he's like their inside running back. And then this rookie, Woody Marks, is a really nice player out on the perimeter. And I think they need to get him more touches. The defense is violent. They go downhill. It's the best unit in the NFL that's not getting enough tension. But I'm so much more encouraged with the style of offensive football that they have tried to play and played in the last 2 weeks than they did the first 2 or 3.
You might notice off to the side, Mina Kimes looks like she's about to disagree. Orlovsky, Houston Texans legend, he did play for the Texans back in the day, is encouraged by what he's seeing. Should he be? I don't know. Dan Orlovsky sees the positive in a lot, but he thinks that they are heading in the right direction. Mina Kimes had a rebuttal of sorts, as she is entitled to. Here is her response to this segment. In this segment, where Dan Orlovsky really, really raves, not just about the Texans defense, but about their offense as well.
I want to believe.
Opponent?
I'm
with that.
Some busted coverages, guys wide open, the under center. It felt like, CJ Stroud must have felt the best he's felt in this game in
but
2 years.
at least
But we've been
like
wondering where's the under center play action, where's Nico Collins on the deep digs that he's so good at, and you certainly saw it in this game. Granted, again, they were so unchallenged up front, it was hard to get a feel for it, but I think your point is good, which is that this defense is so good, and they've been so good. I'm put on the Rams tape, by the way, that they made Matthew Stafford
awesome
work
unit.
for every single yard. The offense doesn't have to be great. They just have to be competent. And if this is a step towards competency, then I will believe in this team again. But I really want to see them do it against
a real opponent, real defense, But I'm at least encouraged by what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
I agree with both of them here. Yeah, you should be encouraged with what they're trying to do on offense. But you also should be skeptical that they're going to be able to do what they did against a bad team and a dead team in back-to-back weeks. We will see on the other side of the bye. For now, we wait. But, hey, at least there's a pulse, right? I know a lot of people want to talk about trades on the TikTok. House Hunter asks about a trade for Quentin Nelson. He's on the Colts. Why would the Colts make that trade? Why would they do that? Why would they do that? Come on. Can we... If we're going to throw trade proposals out, this is why I hate trade proposal conversations. That's why I shit on those stupid Breece Hall rumors a little bit earlier. You got to make a trade that makes sense. Why would the Colts, who are in first place, give you one of the better offensive linemen in the league? Jacob Ross says, I'd trade for a tight end. Maybe Kyle Pitts or David Njoku. Sure. Fuck it. I'd trade for Brock Bowers. You know who else I would trade for? I'd trade for Sam Laporta. I'd trade for Trey McBride. I'd also trade for Justin Jefferson. I'd trade for Jamar Chase. I'd trade for Patrick Mahomes. I'd trade for Lamar Jackson. You know who else I would trade for? I would trade for this version of Dak Prescott. I would trade for all sorts of things. Okay? I would. But none of them are going to happen. I did this for the clicks. I'm sorry. I mean, if you really want, we could think about players on teams that you could think about making a phone call for. Because I think Nick Caserio should pick up the phone, ask some of the worst teams around the league if they're willing to, if they're thinking about parting ways with any of their guys. So what teams are dead? Jets are dead. Who on the Jets could you trade for? At least make a phone call. The Dolphins are dead. They're 1-4. Who on the Dolphins could you trade for? Offensive linemen, skill position players. Probably not going to do Tyreek Hill. Probably not. Just given the Texans way, which has changed a little bit with the Patriots people in the building, but I think is getting back to where it used to be. Anyone on the Ravens you could theoretically get? Offensive lineman or defensive tackle? Maybe. Browns, Titans are not going to trade with you. Raiders? Huh? How about the Saints? Every team in the NFC outside of the Saints has 2 wins. Patriots, Saints on Sunday. I wonder if the Patriots actually can follow up on what they did Sunday Night Football against the Bills. The Giants got win number 2 last night. Did anyone watch that game? I think it marks a very important moment in the history of the National Football League. How many people have seen the movie Lord of the Rings? The Return of the King. How many people have seen it? Interesting scene in that movie that I'm thinking of after what I saw last night in Thursday Night Football.
The age of
Diversity at running back
is over. The time of the
white running back
has come.
That's right, boys. That's right. White running backs are back, finally. You see that boy, Cam Scatbo, last night? He's got a big old square head, and he's got a lot of tush for the pushing. More tush pushing than the Philadelphia Eagles did last night. That boy, Cam Scatbo, he goes out there with his Giants, and he scores not 1, not 2, but 3. 3 touchdowns. And to help the New York Giants take down the Philadelphia Eagles and defend the Super Bowl champs 34-17. The white running back is back. It's back. No, I don't wear a hood on the weekends. I'm not about to say color of skin power. But running backs are a persecuted group. It's a position in the National Football League where there's clear discrimination. You also see that cornerback too. There's a lot of discrimination going on. So to see Cam Scatabo break the barrier and do all those hard-nosed little things in a gritty, hard-nosed kind of fashion, I like to say it. Because that's what we do. We're deceptively fast. Constantly getting discriminated. Like my flag football team that wouldn't let me play defensive back, even though I was an all-district safety. And we kept on getting beat deep, and honestly, we had nothing fucking to lose. But this is one of those things that they got to realize right now. The white running back is back. Okay? So keep that in mind. Cam Scatabo, we got 30 points for my fantasy football team last night. He's leading the charge. It's got me wondering, who are the great white running backs in NFL history? Let's do it. Let's name some guys. You know who my favorite white running back ever is? Even though he recently was the head coach of my arch rival high school. He wore number 40 and played for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers from 1996 through 2007. I am, of course, talking about Mike Allstott. I watch some Mike Allstott highlights. I'm sure this will get copyright dinged. Don't give a shit. I don't give a shit. Mike Allstott. The A-Train. The original A-Train. Anthony Thomas, Bears running back, tried to steal it from him. This guy was a beast. Look at it. Look at this shit. Whoop! Whoop! Oh, they got him in the creamsicles, too. He had hands. Sure hands. Classic white guy. Whoop! Whoop! You might be thinking to yourself, Paul, wasn't this man a fullback? No, he was a running back. He was a running back. Mike Allstott, one of the all-time greats. Who's some other great White running backs from back in the day. Some Patriots legends. You had Danny Woodhead. You had Rex Burkhead. I know Peyton Hillis was on the cover of Madden Football at one moment in time, but I got another one for you. He went to Syracuse, in case you didn't know. And he also played for an undefeated football team. I'm, of course, talking about Larry Zonka. Look at this guy. Boom. Headbutt, headbutt. Boom, 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 boom. That's Larry Zonka. Boom. Look at the face mask he's wearing. Here he keeps on going. Boom, boom. Push that pile. Push that pile. Look at that mud he's playing in right now. That's Larry Zonka, everybody. He's off to the races. I don't even know what team he's playing for here because I can't tell the colors. A little more Larry Zonka. Boom. In. More Zonka. Boom. Don't see that every day. You don't see that anymore. You don't say that anymore. And it's a bummer. Joey Diaper says, sounds about white. LOL. Love it. What else do we have? Ooh, Daryl Johnson, says B. Hannon on the YouTube. Yeah. You know where he went to as well? Does anyone know? Moose Johnston went to Syracuse. I'm not kidding. Why are these white running backs going to Syracuse? I don't know. I'm just saying. Daryl Johnson. He went to Syracuse. Now he's a broadcasting legend. See, you don't believe me? You don't believe me talking about Moose Johnson here? Here's Moose Johnson at Syracuse, everybody. Look at that guy. Hell yeah. This is him in high school. Man, they got some old high school. God damn, how old is this tape? This is Larry Zonka in high school. The man, Larry Zonka. What? No, wait, hang on. Moose Johnson. I'm confusing all my whites. All white people look the same. There he is, Syracuse legend. Oh, yeah. Look at Moose. Look at Moose run right there. Hell yeah. He's wearing 32. He's got the cowboy collar and everything. I ain't going to show the cowboy highlights because I don't think I'm going to be allowed to play it. There he is, Moose Johnston. Who else we got? What other white boys we got out there playing running back? Who else we got? Ooh, I got another one. And guess what? Get this. He also played at Syracuse University. What's up with all these Syracuse white running backs? Anyone remember Rob Conrad? Rob Conrad, man. Rob Conrad played football at Syracuse. I can't find any Syracuse highlights. But he was, I think, the last guy to wear number 44 for the Syracuse Orange. Yeah. The man, the myth, the legend, Rob Conrad. Ooh! Ooh! Sam McGuffey. Gotta do... we could do Craig James, but Craig James sucks, and he got Mike Leach fired at Texas Tech. I suppose he wouldn't have coached at Washington State, and he wouldn't have been able to coach one of my friends up in high school, but yeah. Anthony, Texas says Timothy Riggins, Texas high school legend. How about Billingsley from the Friday Night Football movie that was based on the actual book? Alfred Blue, not a white guy. John Riggins, thank you. John Riggins stories are the best. I think there's a lot of funny John Riggins things that we could get into. Let's see. God, the 80s haircuts, 70s haircuts are fantastic. Here's some more.
The Redskins opened up a 3-day mini camp out at Redskin Park today, and the center of attention was running back John Riggins. He was back working out for the first time since he walked out of training camp last July.
Those short shorts. Fuck yeah, dude.
His grievance against the Redskins will be heard by an arbitrator next week, but Riggins says he's ready to play. After this morning's workout, he talked about his reasons for returning to the Redskins.
Can't say that.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back. I'm getting tired of just running up and down the field by myself. I guess I need some company. Guys are they're just like they've always been. It's almost like I hadn't been gone. And after you played the game for 9 years, and then I set out last year, it seems like the Dallas game that I last played in was just last December. I don't know the year, but I didn't play last year. It's gone, and I really. I guess what I'm trying to say is I can't tell that I didn't really play, that I have laid off a year. I weighed in this morning at 234, which is a little bit.
So that's John Riggins. Love the hair. I think there's another John Riggins. I'm trying to find, where's the John Riggins? John Riggins was drunk at a Reagan dinner, I believe. We'll play some of his highlights in a moment, but John Riggins' story. Yes, he got drunk with Sandra Day O'Connor. This is an article from For the Win in the USA Today. January 30th, 1985. Riggins was set to attend the Washington Press Club's annual black tie event, Salute to Congress, at the Washington Sheraton as a guest of People magazine. Riggins said, I had been with a good friend, had a few beers, didn't eat, went to the hotel, walked in, and I don't know why, because I hardly ever drink it, but I had a double scotch, and then I had another. We had wine at the table. I continued to drink my dinner, says Riggins, who refused food. There were 2 bottles of red wine, says somebody who was with John. And John, in a very expressive mood, managed to mow both of them down. So they brought 2 more bottles of red wine, and he somehow managed to knock them over. The table is covered in red wine. He was wearing a back brace. The chair had to be adjusted because he said it was bothering him. Riggins went up to Sandra Day O'Connor's seat, a Supreme Court justice. He put his arm around O'Connor's husband, looked over at Sandra Day O'Connor, the first female justice in history, and said, "Come on, loosen up, Sandy baby. You're too tight." O'Connor laughed and smiled back. Riggins then fell asleep on the floor during some speeches, which included George H.W. Bush. Oh my God, that's hilarious. Riggins said this, quote, "It looked like an 18-wheeler jackknifed on the interstate. He appeared comfortable. He was lying first on his back, and then rolled over and was on his stomach. A woman grabbed his nose, shook it back and forth, grabbed his hair, and pulled it. It was a great evening as far as I was concerned. One of the most memorable I could remember in Washington," says someone who witnessed it. "Everyone had a great time. It was a funny moment. It was a funny evening. No one was dying of embarrassment." Riggins said, "I was perfect for the part. I've been embarrassed and humiliated by the boners I've pulled. I was embarrassed by what I said to O'Connor. You'd have to be dead not to be." Riggins later sent roses and a note of apology to her. A few days later, women in O'Connor's aerobics class wore "Loosen Up" at the Supreme Court t-shirts. This was just Riggins being Riggins, everybody. What a great story. And we got to show that one play by John Riggins in the Super Bowl, which I'm sure this will get copyright struck as well. But this is called The Run. Hell yeah, dude. Riggins! And I'm guessing that John Riggins is why they chose the name Tim Riggins for the Friday Night Lights television show. So there you go, everybody. The age of the white running back, it's back, thanks to Cam Scatabo. And do yourself a favor and look up some of the funny clips of Scatabo after the game. Anyway, guys, we have the first guest in Gallant Says podcast history. The Astros made a bunch of moves yesterday, and I thought, you know what? Let's talk to somebody who actually knows a thing or two about baseball. So the first guest of the Gallant Says podcast is, get this, everybody, Chandler Rome. Come on down. And joining me as the first guest of this edition of Paul Gallant being unemployed and hosting the Gallant Says podcast, the first guest is Chandler Rome, Astros beat writer for The Athletic, who you can also hear on the Crush City Territory podcast. Chandler, what's up? Busy day as we record this on Thursday with the Astros moving on from a lot of guys. Let's start by talking about head athletic trainer Jeremiah Randall, who I think a lot of people, myself included, wanted to see gone during this past season. His contract expired. They didn't renew him. Anything more to it than that?
I mean, I think he'd been with the team for 10 years and had done, they had been, if you look back to the 2022 season when they won the World Series, they were the least injured team in baseball. Like, that is part of the reason that they won the 2022 World Series, is quite frankly that they stayed upright. They were really good, don't get me wrong, but if you go back and look at that team, that was the least injured team in baseball that year. So it's weird. Like, first of all, I want to say this. Like, I'm not a doctor. I'm not in medicine. I don't know I don't know what the return to play procedure entails. All I know is that it had been ridiculed by the guy running the team 3 years ago that said, we need to look at this. And it never was looked at. I also want to say, like, I don't think Jeremiah Randall or anyone in Houston's athletic training staff, medical staff, strength and conditioning staff, whomever you want to put this on, like, I don't think they forgot how to practice medicine or forgot how to, like, rehab players, right? They have a track record of success. Like I just told you, like in 2022, they were literally the least injured team in baseball.
And I guess training staff of the year in 2017 for what it's worth.
Right.
They also won the series.
Yeah. Like, how much of that is luck? How much of that is them being good at their jobs? I am not qualified enough to answer that. All that to say, like, Jeremiah and his staff have done good work here. So what I say all that to mean, like, if they wanted him back, they probably would have renewed his contract. Like, he had done exemplary work here for 10 years. Look, I'm not going to sit here and speculate as to why this happened, and certainly it's unfair to paint it as Jeremiah Randall is gone and now the Astros are going to get their guys healthier and get them back healthier, and all injuries are going to be prevented. All guys are going to spend the minimum time on the IL, and this is going to end. Like, that's unfair to Jeremiah. That's unfair to anyone listening. But as I kind of wrote consistently throughout the season, like, even though I'm probably not I'm not qualified to, like, talk about medicine or something, like, it was clear that something was wrong. Like, this wasn't happening elsewhere where, like, you had two very well-known players this season in Alvarez and Jake Myers that had very public setbacks, one of which was then said, oh, we didn't image him enough, when that's just like a basic fundamental breakdown in rehabbing guys. And then last year you had the Kyle Tucker situation as well. Like, I don't cover every team. I'm not in depth with 29 other teams, but usually when that kind of stuff happens, it rises to the level of news. That ain't happening elsewhere. And it's not happening to that. It's not happening that frequently elsewhere. So it was clear that something was off. I'm not qualified enough to tell you what it is, but it's clear that the Astros thought a new voice, a new set of eyes, a new perspective. And I know we'll get into more of this maybe as we talk about the other guys that aren't coming back, but Jeremiah Randall had been with the team since 2015. Alex Centrone and Troy Snicker had been the hitting coaches since 2019, but had both been in the organization way before that as well. Michael Collins had been with the team since 2000. These are a lot of guys that have been around for a long time. So not only maybe just with Jeremiah, but with all of these guys, like I took it maybe more to be, do they need just like a different set of eyes? Do they need a fresh voice? Do they need a fresh perspective on things? Because, and I'm not at all sitting here saying that people got complacent or that people got comfortable. I don't think that's the case at all. But when you have the same group of people that has been around for as long as all these people have been around, like sometimes the message gets stale. Sometimes the stuff you don't maybe get the step back and get the 10,000 foot view like you would if you have someone from another organization or someone from outside come in. So I think that is maybe the more pertinent discussion topic than just looking at, oh, the Astros had 28 guys go on the injured list. They're the most injured team in baseball, so they're going to fire their trainer.
Some bad luck on that front. To what you are saying, you're right. With Jeremiah Randall, there was some success, but I'll also say this too, as someone who has a friend who has worked not at the highest level of sports, but as a trainer, he actually asked me questions. I didn't know he was aware of all the weird stuff that was going on with the Astros training staff. So I'm sure he was talking about that with perhaps some of his friends in the industry. For whatever it's worth, what you mentioned, 28 injuries, 18 at one point. This is something that gets super highlighted when it looks bad because of all of the other things that are going on. And I would imagine that it had to in some way affect whether or not the Astros wanted to bring him back. To what you were saying earlier, though, you're right in that you can't really predict going forward how this is going to help. I do think that injuries are largely flukish across all sports. So we'll see what happens with the next group. I definitely imagine for Astros fans, it's pretty satisfying to see somebody get got, whether this is right or not right. And I think many could argue it's not right because of all these injury issues that they had. And I imagine that's perhaps in the back of Jim Crane's mind when he also chose to not renew his contract.
You know, I think from Jim Crane's perspective, and I mentioned this on my pod during the season. I think I even wrote it in one place. Like, I think Jim Crane has to view it from like these are his. And I hate viewing baseball players like this. I hate viewing athletes like this. But at the end of the day, this is a business, and some of Jim Crane's most valuable assets were not being utilized. Like Yordan Alvarez is one of their highest paid players, and he played 48 games. Like Jeremy Pena is one of his most valuable assets, and he missed 2 months. Now he got hit in the ribs. Like that's not the trainer's fault, but like I think as he took a long view of it, like that has to enter his mind too. Like how much money, how much value, how much of what I am paying is sitting on the injured list, not able to be utilized, and that is in turn affecting the team's play. That's in turn affecting whether the team can get into the playoffs, where the revenue is higher, where the gate is higher, where you get more playoff games, you get playoff revenue, things like that. So, I mean, there's a big macro like business sense to this too, that I mean, there's few businessmen in the world that don't think like that, right? Like Jim Crane didn't get to where he's at by like not thinking like that. And he's not alone. Like I think a lot of, very rich people would maybe consider it that way too. So I kind of thought maybe he looked at it from that perspective as well. Just like, how can I get my most valuable, how can I get the best return on my investment from my most valuable assets? And he saw this year that a lot of his most valuable assets were too often on the sidelines and didn't give him a return on that investment.
One of the other big moves made today, the Astros moved on from hitting coach Alex Centrone. They framed it as parting ways. This is, to what you were saying a little bit ago, a guy who has been with the Astros for a very long time. He was a translator at one point. He worked his way up. Very curious about the locker room, the clubhouse side of things. Was not bringing him back about what you were mentioning a little bit earlier, stagnation, or was it, as you outlined in your piece in The Athletic about a week ago or so, maybe 10 days ago or so, talking about the Astros' lack of patience at the plate? The numbers, I remember, rather staggering. Going into the year, I think Espada had said that he wants to see, and Dana Brown as well, he wants to see the team see more pitches, to be a little bit more patient. But then at the end of the year, only the Rockies chased out of the strike zone more than the Astros, the fucking Rockies. And only the A's and Pirates averaged fewer pitches per plate appearance. So was it because of an inability to execute Dana Brown's plan, or is it more about stagnation in your mind?
Oh, I want to say, first of all, the A's are a pretty good lineup. So the A's showed you that you can like see not a ton of pitches and still hit the crap out of the ball. Like Nick Kurtz is really good, Soderstrom, Jacob Wilson, like they've got a good lineup. So like it just goes to show you like you can be a good lineup and be like aggressive. Like the two things don't always like have to go together, that like aggressive lineups are bad lineups. But anyway, yeah, like getting, and again, Cintrone and Troy Snicker were both in the same situation as Jeremiah Randall. They had their contracts expired after this season and were not renewed. From the beginning, well, not from the beginning, from when it became pretty clear that, you know, they weren't going to make the playoffs and that the offense was going to have to be audited this offseason, my whole thought had been that Dana Brown had to answer a pretty straightforward question. Like, was this a personnel issue or was it a philosophy issue? And I'm going to get, like, here's why, to me, it is at least somewhat of a personnel issue. So the Astros have 6 guys that were in the top 50, that were within the top 50 in the sport in swing rate. Those 6 guys are Jeremy Pena, Yainer Diaz, Christian Walker, Cam Smith, Mauricio Dubon, and Jose Altuve. Diaz, Dubon, Altuve, and Pena all chased outside the strike zone at least 35% of the time. Christian Walker chased outside of the strike zone 28% of the time, which is about a 5% increase from where he was last year. So remember all those names I just said. Walker, Altuve, Pena, Smith, and Diaz, all in those numbers, they took the 5 most plate appearances on the team this year. At some point, like when you have all these guys that are the same offensive profile, I'm not really sure what you expect. Like it is as just as much as it, look, by what they did today, by not retaining these 2 guys, they have acknowledged that it's at least somewhat of a messaging and philosophy problem. And they are going to work to correct that with someone else. But as I have continued to reiterate, anytime I get asked about this, like just getting rid of these 2 guys is not going to solve what's going on here. This is more of a personnel issue, in my opinion. Like, I think they need to take a deep dive and look at the construction of their roster and what they have, because they have a lot of guys that are just the same profile, the same offensive profile. Now, like, let's not forget, Isaac Paredes missed a good bit of the season. He saw the most pitches per plate appearance of any guy in baseball last year. That's part of the reason they got him in the Tucker trade. They wanted him for that reason. Jordan Alvarez usually doesn't chase outside the strike zone, usually sees a good bit of pitches, not as many as Paredes, but could have helped. He only played 48 games. Let's also not forget, Dana Brown traded Kyle Tucker last winter, and Alex Bregman signed with the Red Sox. Alex Bregman, notoriously patient hitter, does not chase outside the strike zone. Kyle Tucker, same way. So I'm not really sure what they expect. Like, they entered the season knowing that they had a diminished lineup from what they had in 2024. And it played out that way. They had a lot of the same hitters, the same style of hitters were getting the most plate appearances, and it bore out the way you would think it would. So I struggle to like place that blame entirely on the hitting coaches, only because like it's also kind of misguided as to what a hitting coach does. Like, look, man, like if you think Troy Snicker and Alex Cintrone weren't telling Yainer Diaz like daily, hey, don't swing outside the strike zone. Like, duh, of course they were. Like, but it's one thing to tell him. It's another thing for him to do it. Like, they can't take the at-bats for them. But it's pretty clear that, like, and again, I go back to what I started with. Like, I think it can be beneficial for just a different voice, a different outlook, a different way of communicating things to these guys. Because when you've had the same coaches, the same style, the same messaging for as long as they have both been there, you know, maybe it does kind of go in one ear and out the other at times. And I'm not saying that happened here. And look, I'm here to tell you too, the clubhouse loved both of those guys.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things I wanted to ask about, because I know you had highlighted that Carlos Correa and Cintrone had been having conversations before Correa returned, and Cintrone already had laid out, hey, here's what I think you should work on with your swing. And I mean, Correa, when he joined the Astros, his numbers went way up from where they were in Minnesota.
Yeah, and look, this is not it's not abnormal, right? Like in football or like any sport, like when a coach gets fired, like or not retained, whatever you want, however you want to say it, like, players are usually upset. Players oftentimes like their coaches, like, and if a player doesn't like their coaches or doesn't like the people around them, then that manifests itself way before now. So yeah, they grew to like these two guys, and they're probably not thrilled, but I guess I would also say, like, if they didn't want that to happen, play better. Like, I mean, I can't sit here and like just pile it all on the hitting coaches. Just in the same way of like, I don't think them hiring two new hitting coaches this offseason is going to all of a sudden make this offense the best lineup in baseball next year. Maybe it will. I don't know. Maybe I'll look stupid. Maybe Jose Altuve will have a George Springer-esque like renaissance. Christian Walker, the same thing. Jordan stays healthy the whole year. Paredes stays healthy the whole year. And maybe they have a great offense next year. I don't know. But I just have trouble putting everything that happened in 2025 with the offense on the coaches. It is, look, when you get to that level, when you make that salary, when you get that title, part of it is it falls back on you. Like, that's just what you sign up for when you get into coaching. It falls back on you. But I don't think it is the quick fix and just the complete cure-all that fans will think it'll be.
Before we get into potential replacements, probably the biggest news through all of this, at least for baseball casuals like myself, Joe Espada returns on the final year of his contract, 3 years. Dana Brown returns on the final year of his contract, 4 years. You mentioned stagnation a little bit earlier. Joe Espada has been here a very long time. Personally, I think that he did a really good job navigating the very many issues, injuries specifically, that the Astros had to deal with this year to have this team within arm's reach of still winning the American League West again. And I would say the same for Dana Brown, who makes that trade in the offseason, which, yeah, you miss Kyle Tucker for sure, but you like what you see early on from Cam Smith. Isaac Paredes seems to be a very welcome addition. Are those two who will be here next year guys that you imagine will be sticking with the Astros long term?
I mean, as far as I know, neither of them got anything extended to their contract. Like, they are entering this season as lame ducks. And to me, that would signal at least some uncertainty as to whether they're the long-term answers, because I think if Jim Crane believed both of these guys are the long-term answers, they would have gotten a couple of years tacked on. I wonder how hard will it be difficult for Joe Espada to go lure good hitting coaches with knowing that he has 1 year left on his deal, or this is the last year of his deal. Like, look, I mean, there's only a certain amount of major league hitting coach jobs open. Like, he's going to find guys that'll be able to take them, but like, he's going in, with one hand kind of tied behind his back, because these guys have livelihoods. They have families. They want to know, like, hey, if I take this job, like, is this going to be a 10-month thing and then we're all getting canned if we don't make the playoffs? Like, I think that's a very valid question. I think it's a valid question as to whether they believe these two are the long-term answers, because they can frame it however they want to frame it, and they'll do their best to do their damage control and all that. Their fates were uncertain until about 3 days ago. Like, when they got on the dais for that end of season press conference, neither of those two knew their fates 100%. I can say that on pretty good authority.
And I remember you had written in the article that it was a rather awkward press conference.
It was. Because look, if Dana knew Dana's as straight shooting and as candid and as from the hip guy, like, he tells the truth, man. Like, when I asked him, like, have you been given assurances that you will be the GM of the Astros going forward? Like, he didn't say yes. He said, I expect to be. Well, and then we're asking him on the Sunday in Los Angeles on the final regular season game, we're asking him about Joe Espada, and all he's saying is, well, he's under contract. Well, that's not a yes. That's just he's under contract. And I think we both know what that's alluding to, right? I'm not sure that was his decision to make. I think it was Jim Crane's decision to make. And so, I think it certainly puts a lot of pressure on this upcoming season. It puts if they miss the playoffs again, are they cleaning house even more? Or if they make the playoffs and let's say they lose a hard fought series to whatever team they come up against in the ALDS and they fall a little bit short, is that clean house? I don't know, but it certainly puts a microscope on these two guys going into this season. And I wonder how it's going to affect, maybe the way they approach things. Is Dana going to be more aggressive with some of his moves? Is Joe going to manage, with a little more urgency, just knowing that they work for an owner that expects a lot? He is an aggressive owner that expects a lot. I'll never forget, James Click went on the radio once. He went on the flagship here for one of his weekly hits. And I remember he got asked, I don't have the direct quote in front of me, so I don't want to misquote him, but something to the effect of Sean Salisbury was doing the interview. And Sean asked him something to the effect of, hey, they had just either won the division or gotten over the 100-win threshold or something. It was in 22 when they were just destroying teams. And he mentioned, he goes, yeah, but the first thing I got asked by Jim Crane is when are we going to set the franchise win record? Is nothing. He is constantly pushing for more. He is constantly a guy that wants more. And part of that is the standard that's been set here. When you go to the ALCS 7 years in a row, when you win 3 pennants, when you win 2 World Series, the standard is higher here than it is other places. And Jim Crane adheres to that.
To the lame duck contracts, what's the precedent for that generally in baseball? I know in football, it's generally frowned upon. I think one of the more recent examples would be Mike McCarthy with the Dallas Cowboys. Does that happen a lot in baseball? Because you take a look at the Astros and a lot of, I guess, the moves and changes that have happened over the last couple of years. Technically, James Click, who seemingly was fired, was offered a 1-year extension. All the guys that they are moving on from this offseason, their contracts were expiring, so they were already, I guess, in that mode. Is this common in baseball?
I don't know about in baseball, but it's common with the Astros. James Click and Dusty Baker worked the 2022 season technically as lame ducks. That didn't come out until late in the season when myself and some other people started reporting about the dysfunction between James Click and Jim Crane and about how it was headed toward a divorce. But they worked that whole season as lame ducks. And Dusty's kind of used, Dusty was making jokes about it. He's used to it. He's been, I think he once said, he's I'm the lamest duck that's ever been. He did, but you remember too, he only got a 1-year deal. They won the World Series in 22 and he got a 1-year deal to come back in 23. And no one really batted an eye because Dusty's an older guy and he didn't know how much longer he wanted to manage. And it kind of made sense to go with him on a year-by-year basis. But no, the precedent is here. Those two guys worked on expiring contracts and you didn't really know how it was going to end up. They ended up winning the World Series and still didn't save one of their jobs. So with the Astros, it is it's something that has happened before. And we just now know about it a lot earlier this time around because it never really got talked about in 2022 because they were winning so much, it didn't really matter. And by the time it really started to boil up that, they were so deep into the season that Jim or whoever could deflect the questions by saying, oh, we're focused on the playoffs. We're focused on, this is a distraction. We're focused on no, now it's going to be this is going to be a question in spring training now. If Jim Crane talks to us in spring training or, it's going to be a question that Dana Brown faces, every now and then. It's going to be a question that Joe Espada faces. And, if they get into the season and, they go on they have a rough, month or so and they're teetering a little bit. You always have in the back of your mind, well, he didn't have a contract for next year. It'd be really easy to just if they want to make an in-season move to shake some stuff up, it's there. So there are a lot more layers to this. It's a fascinating kind of outlook for what's happening going forward.
Any replacement candidates for hitting coaches off the top of your head? I'm sure some people are going to be pushing for a Michael Brantley or Martin Maldonado, some of the old dogs.
You want Martin Maldonado to be the hitting coach?
The fearless defensive leader of the Houston Astros. Yeah, he won them a championship. Come on.
I can look. The hitting coach is going to be someone that no one has ever heard of. Like, I'm not going to guarantee that. Something could happen where they hire someone that maybe has some cachet, but like Michael Brantley's not going to be this team's hitting coach. Why would he want to do that? Like, he retired to spend time with his kids in Port St. Lucie. Do you think he wants to travel 125 nights a year and be the hitting coach? Like, it's not, like, no. And also, like, I was talking about this on Crush City Territory earlier, but like, remember when Jeff Bagwell was the hitting coach? And this is not a shot at Jeff Bagwell. This is like, I'm making a point here. Jeff Bagwell was the team's hitting coach in like the 2010s, I think. And it didn't last very long because like Jeff Bagwell is so good. And like most other major league players are not as good as him. And so it's hard for people that are really good at this to tell less talented players, hey, just do it like this. Like I do it like this. Like I can get with this pitch, no problem. And they're like, you're a Hall of Famer. Like I'm not a Hall of Famer. And I'm not saying Michael Brantley's probably in the same boat. Like it's like you hit 300 his whole career. Like there ain't many 300 hitters just like laying around. Like it will be a lot. It will be someone that does not have a lot of name value. It's going to be someone that is not maybe front of mind for Astros. But maybe I'm bad at this. I cannot even start to hazard guesses as to who like maybe replacements would be. If they do go internal, I don't know if they would. The two names to keep an eye on would be Thomas Whitsitt and Dan Hennigan. Dan Hennigan is like, they just hired him, I believe, last year to be their overall like hitting coordinator. And if you Google Dan, if you're watching this, go Google Dan Hennigan. He's got a lot of like very advanced kind of hitting websites, some biomechanics stuff. Like he is a very, very well thought of guy. And he was around the major league team toward the end of the season. Now that's not abnormal. Like when the minor league season ends, a lot of those coaches will come be around the big league team for the last couple series. Dan Hennigan was one of them, was around the team. So those would be the two internal guys. Maybe look at external. I have no idea.
The other moves made, and we didn't go in detail about them. Hitting coach Troy Snicker out. My bad, not retained. Catching coach Michael Collins, not retained. And assistant general manager Andrew Ball, not retained. I know that Ball, one of his jobs was overseeing sports medicine and performance. So perhaps he's a casualty of the Astros' bad luck and weird return to play policy and poor communications on that side of things. Anything of note with those other two names as far as going forward for this team?
I was a little surprised to see Andrew Ball be one of the guys because I'm going to tell you, I've had more calls today from people in the industry, from agents, from people with other teams that raved about Andrew Ball. Like, and the one thing I'll tell you that what he was indispensable for with Dana was, and Dana's been forthright about this. You know, when Dana got hired from the Braves, he was very much a scout. He still is. He's a scouting guy. He was a lot on the player evaluation side, on the scouting side of things. When he got here, like when you're the head of baseball operations, like there's a lot of stuff you got to know. Like you got to know the rules. You got to know roster limits, roster rules, how to like something as easy as like, hey, this guy has this clause in his contract and we have to tell him by this date. A lot of housekeeping, like nitty gritty stuff that like you don't have to worry about, like when you're on the scouting side or stuff. Like Dana just didn't have to do that at any of his previous stops. That's where Andrew Ball came in. He was the quote unquote rules guy. Like he was the guy that like was making roster moves. Now Dana was the guy that said, we're going to call up this guy or like, we're going to DFA this guy. But like Andrew was the one that's like, was executing them and like helping like to, you know, dot the T's, cross the I's, do all the paperwork, and he was kind of over like rules and deadlines and how to go about what things they could do and couldn't do by the CBA. He was the CBA maestro of what they did. So Look, I'm sure they have a lot of guys in their front office, and I know they do. They have a lot of guys in their front office that know how to do this stuff. Like, it's not as if Andrew was the only guy that could read the CBA and that knew the rules, but he was pretty invaluable for Dana in that aspect. So it kind of surprised me to see him caught up in it. But again, they've got guys in there. I'm thinking like Anthony Cacchione, Will Sharp. They've got guys in their front office that are very good at that as well, that can maybe backfill that. But I was surprised just from that aspect to see Andrew part of the moves today.
Big day for the Astros. Big day for the Astros. Lots of moves made. Now we figure out who they bring back. And I would like to have you back on when actual moves are made. Expectation from Valdez is gone. I would imagine Hunter Brown, Brian Abreu are going to get nice raises in arbitration. Mauricio Dubon status up in the air, Ramon Urias, and also just the overall fit of the infield now that Carlos Correa is here. Isaac Paredes, we'll see if he's back to 100% next season. At least he did get back at the end of the year. And Christian Walker. It's a very crowded infield. So I obviously know we're going to have to wait and see with a lot of this stuff, but what are you hearing, I guess, on all of those fronts about what might happen over the next couple of months?
Yeah, I don't think they know yet. I think they had to do this stuff first. Like, they had to get through of like, what changes are we enacting, like from a staff perspective? I think this was like the first thing they had to get over. Like, I think they've had preliminary discussions about what they want their roster to look like. I think they've had preliminary discussions about we could do this, this, and this, but I don't think they've done anything definite. I think the first thing that they need to figure out, and this is going to sound kind of weird, they need to figure out what they're going to do with Jose Altuve. He cannot play 155 games and take 600 and something plate appearances as a 36-year-old. Like, he did it last year at 35. They tried to give him as many DH days as possible. I'm not saying that that's the sole reason he had his worst season since 2013, but they have got to find ways to get him off his feet. And they've also got to decide, like, where do we want to play this guy? Do we want to put him at second base at all? Do we want to platoon he and Alvarez in left field and leave second base open? Do we want to just DH him and make Alvarez almost the primary left fielder with Altuve sprinkling in a day or two every now and then? Once you figure out, and because the whole thing is, like, if they want Jose Altuve to play second base for a majority of the time, then it really, really constricts your infield. Then you're like, all right, you have Isaac Paredes, and he really has nowhere to play. You have Christian Walker, who is at first base, a position that Paredes could play, but you don't know what you're going to do with him. And then you have Mauricio Dubon and Ramon Urias, both of whom saw significant time at second base last year. So I think once they figure out, like, what do we envision for Jose Altuve in 2026, then they can start to really, really think about how they want to address some of these situations. I think it's pretty obvious. You look at the arbitration estimates, Mauricio Dubon and Ramon Urias combined are estimated to make $10.2 million. I don't think they want to pay $10 million to two utility guys that are not going to play every day and that really are the same kind of player. Urias is probably a better offensive player. Dubon, a better defender. So I think you look at those, one of those guys is probably a trade candidate. And then they have to ask themselves, do they want to try Isaac Paredes at second base? No one you talk to in baseball thinks he can handle that defensively. His range is not good. He cannot move laterally very well. Maybe if they tell him, like, tomorrow, hey, you're playing second base on opening day, you have the whole winter to figure it out. Maybe he gets better at it and they go that route. Or, Paredes is ARB numbers right at $10 million. You kind of wonder too. And he's got 2 more years of control left. He'd probably get you a good bit in a trade. Like, do you dangle him in trades? And do you hold on to Christian Walker, who I know no one wants to hear it, but had a better second half than I think he gets credit for. Like, really came back in the second half and played well. They're going to have to trim some payroll. Like, I don't think Jim Crane wants to pay the luxury tax a third straight year. They've got some money coming off the books, but the ARB numbers are huge. And they're not going to – and they already need to go address the rotation. They probably need a reliever. They definitely are going to need a backup catcher. Like, they've got needs that they need. So – you start to ask yourself, Can we offload Paredes? Because if you offload Paredes, they're taking on the entire $10 million or around $10 million of his salary. You dangle Christian Walker in a trade, you're probably not going to find a team that's going to take on the entirety of 2 years, $40 million left. So there's a lot of different ways they could go. But I think it starts with figuring out what Jose Altuve's role is. And then after that, everything falls into place.
So what we were talking about a little bit earlier, you were mentioning contracts and Jim Crane probably wanting to see the guys that he's paying a lot of money out there a lot. It will be interesting to see how many games he plays, given that he is set to make $33 million this coming season.
Yeah. I wrote the story. I wrote it in the initial number I wrote was wrong, but I went back and changed it. Of those 7 guys on guaranteed contracts coming back they're going to make around $170 million on the Astros payroll. They have 7 guys. They have 7 guys under guaranteed contracts coming back, and it's Correa, Altuve, Alvarez, McCullers, Christian Javier, Josh Hader, and then the 7th. I'm blanking on the 7th, but whatever. Those 7 guys combined. Oh, Walker. There's your 7th. Those 7 guys combined to accrue 4 wins above replacement last year, according to Baseball Reference. Oof. And Correa was responsible for 1.3 of it, and he played in 50 games as an Astro. If you have that much money in those guys and you're not getting the production out of them, like, it starts there. Like, part of it, like, look, Alvarez missed almost the whole year. You keep him healthy, he's going to produce. Like, he'll probably produce 4 WAR by himself. You keep him healthy. Hader was not available for the last 2 months of the year. He was brilliant before that. If they keep him healthy the whole season, that changes the narrative. Christian Javier looked better as the season ended. Maybe a full, healthy season, he'll be better. But they have got to get production out of the guys that they are paying to be well-producing members of this team. Because if they don't get that, they don't have the farm system to overcome that. And they're also probably not going to go spend lavishly in free agency to overcome that. They've got this money sunk in these guys. They've got to produce.
Didn't mention Lance McCullers there. Not a lot of expectations for him next season.
I mean, look, they need starting pitching. Like, their starting rotation, as we sit here talking right now, the guys you can write in and pen is Hunter Brown and Christian Javier. That's it. Spencer Arrighetti ended the season on the IL with an elbow thing. They don't think he's going to need surgery, but
who knows with this team?
You just watch this team bank on guys coming back from injury to help them, and it didn't work. He's going to come to camp. He's going to battle he's going to be given every opportunity to win a rotation. He's making $17 million. Like, you hope, if you're an Astros fan, you hope with a full offseason of health, which he has not had in a very long time. And you just kind of hope with that normalcy, maybe he gets a little bit of velo back. He's not going to be throwing 97 anymore, but if he can sit 92 to 94 consistently and the command gets a little better and he can, work on some stuff, like, he's going to be given every opportunity to win a rotation spot. And look, if he comes in and doesn't perform, they're not just going to hand it to him. But they need starting pitching. Like, they need every amount of starting pitching depth they can get, and he counts toward that.
He is Chandler Rome. For all Astros offseason news you can handle, make sure that you are subscribed to The Athletic so you can read what he's got to say. And also make sure you're listening to the Crush City Territory podcast, which is the best Astros podcast that there is. Chandler, thank you so much for joining me. And let's do this again when some other Astros shit goes down. Hopefully you won't have recorded a podcast like 5 seconds before shit hits the fan.
We did this whole thing and I didn't know I could curse.
Yeah.
Fuck, I should have cursed.
There we go. All right, we'll see. The first
you got to get
you
got to get me back. You got to get me back so I can use some more fucking profanity.
Ha, nice. So that was Chandler Rome. Great to have him on. I am a fan. I know not everyone is, but I think he does a great job covering the Astros. I think it's nice to have somebody that is objective looking at them. I think he's pretty fair with how he talks about the team. Some thoughts along the way in that interview. I did find it interesting, him bringing up that figuring out what they're doing as far as where they play Jose Altuve next year is one of the biggest things that they're going to have to figure out this offseason. That was interesting to me. He also mentioned that from a hitting coach perspective, that we're probably going to see them hire a guy that no one knows. I did find it interesting how he talked about Jeremiah Randall, the Astros training staff, their medical staff. And it is important, for what it's worth, as someone who has been crushing said training staff for a very long time, it is worth mentioning that they do have a good track record. Just hasn't been a good one since I've come back to Houston. I would say just the last 2 seasons, particularly between Kyle Tucker's injury and Yordan Alvarez's injury, it makes you wonder if they had been around too long. But we did a weekly segment on the radio show that I used to do that we called Astros ER, talking about the weird way that the Astros communicate injuries with us. And to what Chandler said earlier, I mean, people were not just looking at the Astros and the way that they were handling injuries earlier this year with a side eye. They were ridiculing it. I actually found someone who defended the Astros medical and training staff. His name is Will Doctor. He actually works at the place that I used to work at. He got in an exchange with Jeremy Branham. I didn't even know he had a Twitter. I've never met him. I've never interacted with him. And I saw it and I just reposted it because he called Astros players glass when he did it. And I just hate it when people who aren't real athletes do that as members of sports media. And I guess Will golfed at Texas Wesleyan. I'm sure he's really good at golf. I don't really look at golf as a sport as much as I look at it as a hobby, but I realize it's a very difficult thing to do. And apparently he's not a fan of me, and we got into an exchange, and at one point he brought up me being fired. And I mean, at one point I also played this clip.
Is the man retarded? Let me apologize for using that word. Oh. I have my first cousin. We just put him to, he died a few months ago.
So I escalated things a little bit afterwards, but he was speaking in absolutes and with an arrogance that Shooter McGavin would have been proud of. This guy is very country club elitist when it comes to sports. He only cares about golf. Hey, all the power in the world to you, but clearly he seems to have some sort of personal relationship with Jeremiah Randall. And I don't know why he had the tone that he had with me in our back and forth. I should have walked away at some point. I got to realize that there are some people that just don't like you. I tried to be as kind as I possibly could. A little condescending from time to time. I will say he did start it. You can go look at that exchange on X. I don't want to go through the entire thing. At Gallant Says is how you see it. Check all the replies. I went way too long with it. But open invitation to the podcast if he actually wants to defend how he feels about head trainer Jeremiah Randall. I don't think he's going to be able to do a good job. I really don't. And as far as bringing up that I no longer have a show, I mean, you're doing a what? 8 a.m. show on Saturday mornings that's pay for air, and your name isn't on the show. Would you rather be unemployed or have that? I don't know. He's passionate about golf. He seems to like it. I got nothing bad to say about Charlie Epps. I don't know anything about Charlie Epps either. I really don't. Golfer, I guess. But that exchange was weird. And we move on. That's all I got. Open invite. I'm not an asshole, even if you come across as one online. It is 1:58 p.m. And we like to wrap up the show doing a little segment where we go back in time. What happened on this day in history? And then we'll get a couple of Ask Gallant Anything questions before we take the road. Everybody, everybody, this is the theme song to Throwback Every Day. It's one of the greatest theme songs ever. Fuck it, I can't find it. Should have loaded that before the show. I don't know how many people know about the things that went down on this day. Way, way back in the day. But it's a pretty big day. October 10th. If you didn't know that. Did you know that on this day in 1961, the Houston Colt 45s had their expansion draft? The Colt 45s and the Mets became a part of Major League Baseball, I guess, days, weeks earlier, officially. And then they did their expansion draft. The Colt 45s and Mets went back and forth, picking players. First pick for the Colt 45s was Eddie Brassoud, infielder from the San Francisco Giants. Crawfish Boxes did an article back in 2012. It was written by Timothy DeBlock about this expansion draft, which is now 60 years ago. That's crazy. He mentioned some of the best players that the Astros brought in. There's Bob Aspromonte, who was their second selection. He played 7 years at the hot corner for the Astros. At first, Colt 45s. Sam Jones. Is his name Sam? It must be Sam. Sam Jones was the 25th selection in this expansion draft from the Giants as well as the first overall pick. He pitched for the Astros for 5 years. 42-58 with the 3.78 ERA. The Colt 45s picked Ken Johnson with the 29th pick. He pitched 4 seasons for the Astros. He had a 3.41 ERA and a 32-51 record. And then one of the guys who actually had his number retired by the Astros, Jim Umbricht. They selected him 35th from the Pittsburgh Pirates. He pitched mostly out of the bullpen in 2 seasons with the Colt 45s. For those who, I guess, want to hear Umbricht in action, this is a radio broadcast from September 23rd, 1962, where Umbricht got his 1,000th strikeout of the season, I guess. Here is how that sounded. Let me make sure that I'm actually pulling this bad boy up.
Folks, thanks for listening to this show's audio. Anyways, I just want you to check out the podcast, us, or all podcasts.
1-2 count. Outfield is pretty well straight away here for Felipe Alou. Shaded just a little bit around the right side. Umbright checks the scoreboard now in center field. Giants are leading 10-0 with 2 outs here in the 8th. Hiller on first. Here's the 1-2 pitch. There's a foul ball. Got away. Nope, he missed it. Throw to first base. There's the strikeout. That's the 1,000th strikeout by Houston pitching this year as Felipe Alou goes down on strikes.
That makes a lot more sense. 1,000 strikeouts in a year by one pitcher doesn't make a lot of sense. They should have had a better description here. Also, they shouldn't have had a 1-minute promo for a podcast leading up to it.
This is only the second ball club in Major League history. The 45s become the second ball club in Major League history to strike out 1,000 batters in a season. The only other club that has done it, the Los Angeles Dodgers, and they have done it on 4 occasions.
Goddamn. Impressive. Jim Umbricht was the guy who made it happen. Now, here's the sad news about Jim Umbricht. Umbricht died of cancer the next year. Jim Umbricht, after the 1962 season, you heard it after this year, he noticed a small black mole on his right leg near the thigh while golfing. He ignored it, but it grew. Team trainer told him to have it looked at by a doctor. They removed a 3-inch section for testing. A doctor confirmed it was a black mole tumor that had spread to his groin area. Apparently, he had a really great attitude about it. His diagnosis shocked baseball. It made national headlines. He underwent a 6-hour operation to remove the tumor from his right leg. Revolutionary procedure that was used. He was at the hospital for a month, and he and his doctors believed that he had beaten cancer due to early detection and good physical condition. He thought he was going to play 5 to 6 more years, but Umbricht learned his doctors were unsure if the surgery was a success. And if it was, his survival had a very slim chance. So he didn't tell anybody about it outside of his immediate family. In 1963, he actually pitched. He was in uniform opening day. He had a rough outing where he allowed a home run to Frank Robinson in a game on May 9th. But he had blood that was seeping from his wound that was stitched up after the surgery. And while he did have a really good record in 35 games, 4-3 with a 2.61 ERA, considering he had a bloody groin, he played his last game September 29th of 1963. His cancer had started to spread through his body. He needed to be sedated at times because of the pain. God damn. He learned the cancer spread to his chest area after the year was done and knew it was incurable. He was released from his contract. God, they released him from his contract due to his deteriorating health on December 16th. But the Colt 45 signed him to a scout contract with the provision it could become a player contract if he rejoined the active roster. 1964, he was in and out of the hospital, given a few months to live. He wasn't hospitalized. And he played golf, attended baseball dinners in his honor. He was optimistic the whole way through, but he eventually passed away April 8th of 1964. The Colts wore black armbands for the entirety of the 1964 season, and his number was immediately retired. It was the first time that the Colt 45, then Astros, had retired a uniform number. It's a bit of a downer on a Friday story, but this was the day that the Astros had their expansion drafts, and Jim Umbricht is probably the most important player that came out of that, given that he's the one Astros player that's still the one Astros player with his number retired that came of it. What else do we have before we get out here? Because it was the kind of sad way to end the show. Craig Todd, way to bring the show down on a low note. Yeah, maybe I should do this a little bit earlier. Sorry, I went down a rabbit hole looking at the expansion draft. I'll liven things up a little bit. Did you know that today, October 10th, 1969, that a musical was recorded?
I'd rather just
Jesus Christ Superstar was recorded. The only portrayal of Judas in a positive light in any fiction. Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ, who are you, what have you sacrificed? By the way, my favorite part of this musical is this exchange between fictional Jesus and fictional Pontius Pilate. The movie's pretty good. Crucify him, kind of messed up. Crucify him, looks like me a little bit.
Don't let me stop your great self-destruction. Die if you want to, you misguided martyr. I wash my hands of your demolition. Die if you want to, you innocent puppet.
Yeah, that's it. R.I.P. Some people are saying this isn't much better. Fine. Well, how about this? Today in history, October 10th, 1938, Germany completed their annexation of the Sudetenland. That's not so great. October 10th, 1954, Ho Chi Minh took control of Hanoi after the French withdrew. It's not a great one either. Here's one. I bet you haven't heard much about this. In the year of our Lord 732, the Battle of Tours took place. In the Middle East, they call this the Battle of the Highway of the Martyrs. Charles Martel and the Frankish/Aquitanian forces defeated the invading Umayyad Caliphate, led by Abd al-Rahman al-Ghafiqi, who was the governor of Al-Andalus. He was killed in this battle. We know very little about this battle, but it's one of the most important battles in the history of the world. Very few Arabic historians refer to it. It was just a skirmish on the western edge of their massive empire. It went from North Africa to Persia, and they were the foremost military power in the world in the eyes of many historians. And there are a few firsthand accounts of what happened from European historians, writing things down in Latin. It was briefly discussed in the 700s. Charles Martel fought the Saracens on a Saturday in October. That's it. Really casually, considering what an important event it was. No one knows how many people fought in it. Some of those European accounts claim the Franks had more soldiers than the Umayyads or the Caliphate or the Muslim force. But I guess the assumption is the Franks had less than half of the Umayyads. There's one account, this one's a crazy one, said that there were 60,000 Franks fighting against 400,000 Umayyads, and this chronicle says Martel lost 1,500 soldiers, while the Umayyads lost 375,000 of those 400,000. That just sounds fucking ridiculous. So I don't buy that one. But it was something like, in the eyes of many historians, 30,000 Franks against 60,000 to 80,000 Umayyads. Franks were outnumbered. So Charles Martel, who is called Martel, that's his nickname, Hammer. Martel, Hammer. Caught them off guard. He had a phalanx formation in the hills and the trees in this place called Tours. And the Umayyads were completely caught off guard by this box in, and they were like, well, it's uphill and they're in the trees, but fuck it, we got cavalry. So they kept on sending them and sending them and sending them, and the Franks kept on turning them back. Eventually the Franks won the battle. As I mentioned earlier, Abd al-Rahman al-Ghafiqi Turkey got murked, and the Umayyad Empire, Caliphate, turned around and went back from Tours, which is northern France. I've actually been there a long time ago. And that pretty much stopped Islamic expansion into Europe. It helped establish the Franks as the dominant power of Western Europe. It led to the Carolingian Empire, Charlemagne, and eventually France. A lot of historians argue this battle saved Christianity because had the Franks not won this battle, a lot of people think the Umayyads would have rolled through a very divided Europe and taken much of it over. At the very least, if Charles Martel dies here, there's no Charlemagne, there's probably no Holy Roman Empire, there's no papal states. So this event has been mythologized over time, and there's not a lot of accounts of what actually went down. But today, October 10th, 732, nearly, doing a little math here, nearly 1,300 years ago, the Franks defeated the Saracens in Western Europe. Eventually led to me being able to do this bullshit into a microphone. What do we have here? It is an Ask Gallant Anything Friday. Lawrence Outside Stafford, that's a funny name, asks this question. What is the NBA or NFL contract player comparison for Anthony Rendon? Well, it could have been Deshaun Watson, but it seems like he's trying to get back out there, as you might have seen earlier in the show. The NBA comparison is easily, Ben Simmons. Gotta be Ben Simmons. Getting paid, doesn't seem to enjoy basketball, still playing. Gotta be him. So there you go, everybody. Throwback every day, done. Ask Gallant Anything Friday, done. Not a lot of questions. Not Santa asks, Paul, are you the Bayou Butcher? I am not. Not Santa to ask a couple other questions. I am not going to, I'm not going to answer that one. I'm scrolling through. What else do we have? Nope. Probably going to need to put a graphic up that shows it's an Ask Gallant Anything Friday. That way we can ask questions. Once again, this show went a little bit longer than I would have liked. It's a 2-hour show. But thank you so much for tuning into today's live show if you did, and a big thanks to Chandler Rome who stopped by. You can join the Gallant Says podcast live weekdays at noon on YouTube at Paul Gallant. Like this video and subscribe if you're here for the first time. On Twitch at Gallant Says, give me a sub. On X or Twitter, whatever you call it, at Gallant Says Pod, follow me. On Instagram at Sports Gallant, follow me. On TikTok at Gallant Says, like this video and follow me if you haven't already. And on Facebook at Paul Gallant Sports. It'll happen occasionally after major Houston sporting events, and it's available after the fact wherever you get your podcasts. So if you haven't already, subscribe, rate, and review it. The Gallant Says podcast on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. Until Monday at noon Central Time, so long, farewell, and have yourselves a wonderful weekend.
Farewell and adieu to you fair Spanish ladies. Farewell and adieu, you ladies.